You didn't do anything wrong. You showed up. You were present. You held the conversation, asked the questions, tracked the energy in the room, laughed when it was time to laugh, said the right things. You were, by every external measure, completely fine. And then you got home and felt like you'd been wrung out. Not tired, not introverted tired, where a quiet evening fixes it. Something deeper than that. A specific kind of depletion that sits in your chest and your jaw and behind your eyes. Like something was running in you the whole time that nobody else could see, and it finally stopped. And here's the part that doesn't make sense to most people around you. It happens even when you enjoyed it. Even when the people were good. Even when nothing went wrong. Even when you do it again. You still come home empty. And if you've spent any time trying to explain that to someone who doesn't feel it the same way, you already know how that conversation goes. You're told you're too sensitive. You need to get out more. You need to push through it. You'll get used to it. You haven't gotten used to it, and you won't, because this isn't about practice. This is about how you're built. Here's what's actually happening. Your nervous system processes incoming information at a different depth than most people's. Not better, not worse, different. Where most people receive a conversation at surface level, the words, the basic emotional tone, the social cues, you receive all of that and several layers underneath it simultaneously. You're reading micro-expressions. You're feeling the gap between what someone says and what they mean. You're tracking the emotional undercurrent of the room even when you're not trying to. You're aware of the tension that nobody named, the mood that shifted when someone walked in, the thing the other person almost said but didn't. That level of processing costs energy, a lot of it, and it runs automatically. You can't switch it off just because the situation is technically fine. Your system doesn't distinguish between a difficult interaction and an enjoyable one when it comes to processing depth. It goes deep either way. So while everyone else is spending conversation-level energy, you are spending something closer to full-body attention. The kind that leaves a residue. The kind that needs real recovery time. Not just a few minutes, but genuine quiet, genuine stillness, genuine absence of input. And the world doesn't build that in. So you run the deficit, and the deficit accumulates. And after a while, the baseline shifts, and what used to be manageable starts to feel like too much. That's not a personal failing. That's a structural mismatch between how you're wired and what the world currently asks of you. Now here's the reframe, and this is the part I want you to sit with before we get to the practices. Most people who feel this way eventually land in one of two places. The first is overextension. You keep pushing. You keep showing up. You keep performing functional at the cost of feeling functional. You tell yourself it's fine. You white-knuckle through the depletion until it becomes the new normal, until the recovery stops working, until you're running on empty so consistently that you forget what full felt like. The second is shutdown. You start canceling, avoiding, building walls so high that the depletion can't reach you, but neither can anything else. You protect your energy so aggressively that you stop letting people in at all, and then the loneliness sets in, which has its own cost. Neither of those is the answer. What you're looking for is something in the middle, and it exists. It's not a perfect system. It requires attention and adjustment. But it is available to you. It looks like learning to engage without overgiving, to be present without dissolving, to protect your energy not by shutting the world out, but by staying connected to yourself while you're in it. That's the thing most energy protection advice misses. It focuses on what to do after. What you actually need is what to do during, so that the drain doesn't compound to the point where after requires days of recovery. If this is giving you language for something you've been living without words for, subscribing keeps this kind of content finding you. That's all it takes. The first practice is what I call the anchor check. Most energy drain happens because somewhere in the middle of a social interaction, you leave yourself, not physically, but your attention, your inner orientation, shifts entirely outward. You become so focused on reading the room, tracking the other person, managing the dynamic, that there is no part of you still connected to your own interior. And when you're not connected to yourself, you have no way of knowing how much you're spending. The drain happens without your awareness. You only notice it when you get home and the tank is empty. The anchor check interrupts this. It's simple, and it takes about 5 seconds. At any point during a social interaction, mid-conversation, in a group, at a table, you pause internally and ask, "Am I still here?" Not out loud, just a quiet internal check. Can I feel my feet? Can I feel my breath? Is there any part of my attention still connected to my own body? If the answer is no, if you've gone entirely outward, you take one slow breath and feel your feet on the floor. That's it. You don't leave the conversation. You don't make it obvious. You just re-anchor for one breath. Do this once every 15 to 20 minutes in any social situation. It doesn't stop the processing, but it keeps a thread of you connected to yourself while it's happening. And that thread makes a significant difference in how depleted you feel when it's over. The second practice is the exit buffer. The transition between social and solo is one of the most neglected recovery windows available to you. Most people go directly from interaction to the next input. The drive home with the radio on, the phone check, the next conversation, the next task. The social energy hasn't had a single moment to release before something else is already loading in. The exit buffer is a deliberate pause between the end of a social interaction and whatever comes next. Even 5 minutes counts. 10 is better. No input during that window. No music. No scrolling. No processing the conversation out loud to someone else. Just physical stillness and a few slow exhales. What you're doing during that window is giving your nervous system permission to discharge what it picked up. Social environments leave residue in a sensitive system, emotional tone, unspoken tension, the accumulated weight of being perceived and perceiving simultaneously. That residue needs somewhere to go. The exit buffer creates the space for it to move through and out rather than getting carried forward into the next part of your day. If you drive home after social interaction, the car is an ideal buffer space. Windows down or quiet. No podcast, no call. Just the transition itself. By the time you arrive, your system has already begun to settle. The third practice is the during reset. For longer social situations, events, gatherings, extended time with people, you need a way to partially regulate while you're still in it. Not a full recovery, but enough of a reset to extend your window before the depletion becomes unmanageable. The during reset takes about 60 seconds and can be done anywhere. A bathroom, a hallway, stepping outside for a moment. Step away from the group. Find a few feet of physical space. Exhale fully, longer than feels natural. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Then do a soft eye unfocus. Let your gaze go loose and wide rather than sharp and focused. Hold that for 10 seconds. Then ask yourself one question. What do I actually need right now? Not what the situation needs. Not what would be polite. What do you need? Water. 5 more minutes outside. To leave in an hour. To stop tracking that one person's mood. Whatever the honest answer is, acknowledge it. You don't have to act on all of it, but naming it keeps you connected to yourself rather than entirely lost in the management of everything around you. 1 minute. Exhale. Drop. Unfocus. Ask. Then go back in if you need to. But go back in as yourself, not as the fully dissolved version that's been running on empty since the first hour. Here's what I want you to take from all of this. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not someone who just needs to get better at being around people. You are someone whose system runs deeper than most, in a world that wasn't designed with that depth in mind? And the answer to that isn't to flatten yourself down to fit the world's pace. The answer is to build in the maintenance that your particular wiring actually requires. That means the anchor check, staying connected to yourself while you're in it. The exit buffer, giving the transition the space it needs. The during reset, partial regulation when you can't fully exit yet. None of these will make you someone who doesn't feel the drain. What they will do is make the drain manageable, recoverable. No longer the thing that determines whether you can show up for your own life. You can be in the world and still be yourself. You don't have to choose between connection and integrity. That's not a compromise. That's the whole practice. And if you want something quick to use the moment you feel the overload starting, I made a free 2-minute reset for that. It's linked in the description.